we are now joined by Greg Stoker. He is a veteran who served a couple of rounds in Afghanistan, and he has he's transformed himself into an anti-war activist. He's also a journalist with MintPress News. He's one of our staffers, and he joins us now from the Samud Flotilla. He is leading the veteran boat, which is there to break the siege on Gaza. Greg, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I think we solved the audio issues on the flotilla, but I'm on a completely dark deck, and all I've got for a light source is this. So sorry about the video quality.
That's okay, Greg. As long as we can hear you, we want to hear what you have to say. You run a live stream at MintPress News and on the Outcast podcast that you also run on your own, and you provide incredible analysis on the military and on Israel. And so I think a lot of people are curious to know what happened in the days ahead of leaving the Tunisian docks when Israeli drones literally targeted the Samud flotillas.
Yeah, okay. So I know, first of all, I can't say as like a journalist that we have connected anything to the Israeli government. First of all, they were just DJI drones. This is something you can purchase at any sort of drone retailer. The explosive itself that was dropped on the Alma the second night was basically just a smoke grenade, an M14 class smoke grenade, which, due to the historic conflicts in the region, is impossible to track its supply lines. It was put inside a bag or next to a plastic bag of accelerant like gasoline. And basically what happened is what we think, or what my analysis would be, was that a drone flew over the ship, dropped a servo arm, released the package that had a pull trigger on it, and that ignited the bag of accelerant, and it landed on the deck. The smoke grenade didn't cook off because it didn't have a heat threshold, and the contraption was not properly manufactured. And then the firefighting response, which was really fast on the crew's behalf, was able to put it out quickly. So I think going forward, we can see other methods of sabotage, but not using Israeli equipment. This is all stuff you could get in the region. In the city of Tunis itself, there's nothing that really ties it to it, but it could have been a third-party actor with Zionist sympathies. But as you can see, it was really sloppily done. The contraption itself really didn't go off. And what it did allow us to do was revamp our security and drone reporting parameters. So it actually helped the flotilla. So we're heading along now. We're just south of the coast of Sicily, about to link up with the Italian flotilla and try to head to Gaza altogether. However, there's some pretty strong gale force winds coming in tomorrow, so we're going to have to make some weather decisions. I would like to remind everybody that this is going to be a multi-week process. We are under sail. We didn't use any commercial ships or any fishing vessels because they require different licenses, which are really open to sabotage and bureaucratic warfare. So we're all on like private sailing vessels that we cobbled together through a grassroots funding campaign. So we're going there a little slowly. Everybody wishes we could go faster. We wish we could go faster because, as we know right now, as of a few hours ago, we've learned that the Israeli military, during their assault on Gaza, has shut down all internet, and the only people that can now transmit are people with eSIMs, and it's almost impossible, and it takes a long time to upload videos. So this is very intentional as they, set the stage for the final solution in Gaza, that they're shutting off the internet. So what they're doing right now at this moment, at time of recording, happens in darkness.
Absolutely, and we commend you and all of the participants in the Samud Flotilla for their absolute bravery in trying to break this siege for Gaza. Gaza's facing a catastrophic level 5 for famine. The children there, the women, the fathers, those that are left in Gaza are starving. There's no food left in Gaza, no clean water. And the participants in the flotilla are standing up to an out-of-control apartheid state engaging in this ethnic cleansing campaign. What do you expect Israel to do as you approach the coast of Gaza? Because, one flotilla going in maybe not that big of a deal. 2 flotillas going, maybe not that big of a deal. But now you guys are a group of about 40 or more flotillas heading to Gaza. How will Israel react to that? What do you think will happen?
Yeah, well, the standing number here is anywhere between 40 and 50 ships right now. Just because operational parameters, because a lot of these are private vessels, a lot of these were donated at the last minute. Not all of them are going to make it. There's going to be mechanical failures. Some ships are going to fall out en route. But still, a historic and unprecedented amount of ships are going to enter international waters off the coast of the Gaza Strip in order to try and establish a humanitarian corridor into the Gaza Strip and to people facing existential annihilation. So the Israeli Navy is pretty small. It's only got about 60 ships, 45 patrol boats, a couple missile cruisers, 7 to 8 cruisers, and 5 submarines. Do they have the capacity to intercept all ships? Well, I guess we're going to find out. I suspect they do. And so, like, we get a lot of hate about, isn't this performative activism? Aren't you just going to get intercepted anyways? But I would push back to say, like, why would you frame it that way? What we're doing is actually literally protected under international law and international maritime law, which the U.S. Navy, by the way, is supposed to uphold. It just chooses not to when it comes to Israel. But, yeah. If they block it, it would be a violation of international law. Of course, that no longer means anything after 2 years of unmitigated genocide. But, we are going to still stand and try to deliver aid. We're waging an existential information war for the survival of the people in Gaza. And, a lot of things have happened recently. Their entire propaganda apparatus is on the back foot, and there's a lot of things going on with that. But the UN yesterday just declared that a genocide was finally happening in Gaza. They're still reeling from that. And if you look at their engagement with the flotilla itself, their Hasbar is not really engaging with us yet. We're a problem that they don't really want to deal with because, again, it's unprecedented. They've never done it before. And it's not a good look. It's not really legally defensible. So what they're hoping to do, they hope it collapses before we even get there. But we've already passed the stages of bureaucratic warfare where they tried to pressure ships captains and the ports and local governments to pull ships insurance, pull flags so we can't sail in international waters, shut down the harbors. That didn't work. So now I think we're looking towards intense psychological operations once we get closer. The same things that they do to journalists in Gaza, like calling their cell phones, threatening, doxing. I've suggested that everybody in the flotilla gets an internet scrubbing device, because if they don't do it, like Israeli military doesn't do it, well, a lot of the Hezbollah will try to dox activists, journalists, MPs on the flotilla, and all the way up to Ben Gvir threatening us with long-term prison sentences and terror dungeons. But is it politically viable? Well, I guess we'll find out. But anyways, we're going to keep sailing, and the rogue genocidal apartheid state's going to do what it's going to do, and the world will be our judge. I think a lot of people, especially in the U.S. empire, which is where this begins and ends, are really sick of it. Currently, right now, as we speak, there are 250 U.S. state representatives at the state level in Israel for the 50 states, one Israel conference. So a lot of people have been asking, how do you want to support the flotilla? Well, we don't need money anymore. But if you live in the United States, please, there's 5 representatives from each state currently in Israel going through a paid propaganda trip that's meant to enforce and lobby for anti-BDS legislation on the state level. So if you really want to support this flotilla, you can do parallel actions with us back home and let your state representatives know what you think about that.
Absolutely. And that's what democracy looks like, right? Speaking of democracy, Greg, you are an American, you are a former soldier at that, and now anti-war activist. How is the United States dealing with a boat of veterans heading to Gaza?
Well, actually, Lloyd Doggett, my state representative, my congressional representative out of Texas, made a statement that I should be allowed to pass. Beyond that, we haven't really heard anything. Again, like veterans and activist spaces, especially that challenge the government, are not. We're kind of a nuisance. First of all, the support our troops thing, they don't really care about vets or anything like that. They're just a propaganda piece for when they need military recruitment. But we're not really sure. So what we expect going forward is like not the government to address us directly, but they have a lot of paid actors, especially on X and other social media, that will do like investigations into our personal lives and try to discredit us with stolen valor accusations. But everybody, all the veterans on board this boat have been vetted. There is no stolen valor accusations. Everybody has been investigated, and we're good to go. So I think they'll probably just try to ignore us as best we can. Of course, no U.S. citizen from any of the flotillas that has been arrested by the Israeli military, or kidnapped rather, on the high seas and put into immigration detention has ever had any support from the U.S. consulate in Israel. And of course, our representative there is Mike Huckabee, the notorious Christian evangelical Zionist. So he's not going to do anything for us. But our position in terms of messaging inside this flotilla is to show to Americans that, our greatest ally is, of course, imprisoning veterans, but also to explain to people like we know firsthand that whatever violence and repression we conduct overseas is always used back on our own people. The same mechanisms of spyware and surveillance tech that enforces occupation and apartheid in Palestine is at a militarized local police department near you. So if you accept the premise that fascism is on the rise in America and needs to be challenged, well, we believe personally that the front line of that is actually Palestine, because it is the linchpin of all our colonial and imperial violence that we are still enacting in 2025. And that redounds back to every aspect of American life.
Absolutely. You make a very good point. And that was pretty much the premise of my monologue and some of the things that Alan provided on Israel's surveillance tech. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background, Greg, and why you chose to join the flotilla?
Yeah, I'm a former U.S. Army Ranger, which is a special operations unit within the U.S. Army. I did 4 combat deployments to Afghanistan, dabbled a little bit in human intelligence collection. And, over the years, after not just being disillusioned by Obama's drone strike campaign and special operations assault tempo, just formal education about, what was imperialism and colonialism, and then all a senseless war that I didn't understand all started to make sense. So I'm here because I stand in opposition to a self-destructive system of violence that not only destroys countries and people and lives in the global south, but our own, all in service to a 0.1% ruling elite that dominates our politics and, presents us with the veneer of democracy when it doesn't really exist. So I also refuse to live in a world where we can, just sit at brunch where an entire people are annihilated, because at the end of the day, even if you don't really have a lot of empathy, you have to understand and realize that this is what the ruling class has decided is normal, to delete an entire population for a real estate development deal and ideology. And whatever they're willing to do to Palestinians, they're willing to do to you too. Hey, Blackstone, the same companies and corporations that are bidding for development contracts in Gaza right now, are the same ones that bought up all the single family homes during COVID. And that's why you can't pay rent. And that's why you never buy a house. And that's why you will keep working until you die. So it's all connected. And I'm using my position here on the flotilla to try to spread that message.
And that is absolutely commendable, Greg. We appreciate this beautiful transformation that you have had in calling out the U.S. empire. I'm curious to know, based on what you're saying, looking at the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination, what do you see happening in the United States with all of these new attempts for legislation to crack down on dissent?
So, of course, we can make the observation that hang on, I wrote it, that martyrs are used kind of by these messianic movements to sanctify violence, right? The canonization and the sanctification of Charlie Kirk as this saint who believed in free speech and dialogue with political opponents is meant to mobilize a movement against any sort of like left wing or progressive movement because they killed him. So the assassination of Charlie Kirk is actually really concerning to me because it raises the threat assessment for the flotilla in a very real way, because the Trump administration is now framing any action that it doesn't like, and it doesn't like this action, as left wing. This entire flotilla action is a left wing endeavor. That's what people say about it. So will they give more cover for Israel to act with impunity? We've seen what the Trump administration and the U.S. Navy has been doing off the coast of Venezuela, killing a boat full of 11 people with a drone strike, and then recently another boat in violation of international law, extrajudicial killings. Everything that's happening right now is making the world, from a global security position, a whole heck of a lot less safe. And the assassination of Charlie Kirk is just going to be used to fuel fire for more impunity, more extrajudicial policing and executions. And that's what we have to look forward to. But I know the night's dark, but there is a lot less cohesion and unity on the right than a lot of the propagandists would like you to suspect. Candace Owens recently came out yesterday with one of her biggest live streams about how this wasn't a left-right issue. This was a ruling class versus working class issue. So, there is a lot of transformation happening within the American political landscape. Left-wing factions, liberal factions, right-wing factions are kind of like dissolving and changing and coming together in a way that we can't really anticipate. So yes, about 7 days after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, temperatures are still really high, but the Civil War ain't happening yet, because there isn't even that kind of unity among right-wing circles, even though they are in shock by what happened. But in the immediate term, that does make the flotilla a lot less safe, this demonization of left-wing political actions, because, I don't know, what are they going to do? Say that we're Hamas and then authorize naval strikes on us? So we're just going to take it day by day and try to preempt Israeli military action and U.S. impunity by calling it out and making it politically non-viable. We are, of course, a humanitarian flotilla, and we have a strict practice of non-violence, attempting to establish a humanitarian corridor into Gaza. And that's all we can really say and all we can really do.
And I was just about to say the same thing. This is a humanitarian corridor. There are no weapons aboard these ships. And Greg, we just have 2 minutes left. Can you tell us what you plan on doing when and if you arrive in Gaza?
So a lot of these ships, again, are small. They have a minimal amount of aid. What we want to, there are larger command ships that have a considerable amount of diesel aid, a lot of water. I'm on a 14-foot boat. Our job is to just be there, stand in solidarity, deliver what aid we have, and then sail to another port, establish a precedent of this actually working, and continue to send flotillas and small streams of aid in and out. And then once this movement gains viability, people see that it's possible, then we'll start seeing a higher volume of commercial traffic or independent traffic to try and attempt to deliver aid into Gaza. Israel can't really tolerate that, so we are definitely going to come to a place or an impasse in international waters about this, but that is the intention. It's not to save the people. We don't have the cargo capacity to do it. But what we can do and what we want to do is set the precedent to show other people that it can be done. So more and more and more people mobilize to do the same thing.
Absolutely. And Greg, we commend you for all of your efforts in trying to help the people of Gaza. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.